Mabuhay!
Hi! Welcome to
The Babaylan Bruha Book Club podcast.
It's your village Kapwatids, Steph
and Aimee, and here we are together again. And as always, in efforts to decolonize our minds, bodies, and reconnect with spirit by ways of relation via conversation, of education, interpretation, and integration.
So this is our invitation for you to join us on our journeys as we discuss the works of honored artists, authors, and thought leaders in the Filipinx diaspora.
Quick disclaimer, we want to acknowledge that in this moment, everyone is exactly where they need to be.
And since we are not experts, yet we share our own unique lived experiences, we invite you to take or toss any statements, opinions, words that we may use as you choose.
We are so glad you found your way here.
So as always, before we begin, we want to take a moment to ground, taking a pause to drop into our bodies and become fully present in this space. If it's safe for you, we invite you to close your eyes, straighten your spine, and direct your focus onto your breath. Take a few deep inhales, extending your belly out. And as you exhale, bring your belly button back into your spine. Let's do this once more together. Inhale and exhale. You're welcome to continue on your own. But connect back into your body and into this moment. Try not to think about earlier or later on today. Can you allow yourself to feel like what it means to be in this here and now moment? And as we begin our conversation, we'd like to thank God, Batala, Creator, for another gathering. In gratitude, we acknowledge our benevolent ancestors, and we invite all these forces to guide and protect this conversation today. We also thank the ancestors of the lands Aimee and I currently occupy, knowing that we cannot do our own remembrance work without remembering them. For Aimee, that is the mound builders that are the Hopewell and Adena people in Ohio. And for myself, that's the Bay Miwok Yokut people in the Inland Bay Area of California. With gratitude, we also acknowledge your presence, dear Kapwatid, your energy, your light, no matter wherever and whenever you're tuning in.
Okay, Babaylan Bruha Barkada.
Hey.
Time for Bruha check, where we check in with our Bruha Tings. We'll give each other 90 seconds, so because we can talk. We love to talk, but we'll give 90 seconds.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. It's like, I don't know. We started a podcast because we love talking.
Yeah, right.
So I can go first this time around. Okay. You gonna time me, sissy sis?
All right. Bruha check. A minute. I can do math. 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Yes.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Bruha Tings. I don't know if this is necessarily a Bruha Ting, but one of the things that I am currently working on, and Sissy and I kind of touched on this before we hit record, was the fact that sometimes we know things in our head. Like if you have been on this journey of being self-aware of your spiritual journey, being on an emotional journey, even if you're in therapy, it's all about awareness, aware of what your triggers are, why you're being triggered, even astrology, like what's happening and how is that affecting me? Like there's so many things to be aware of. And like I've reached a point where I feel really good. Like there's a lot of things that have been integrated, but the integration piece, I'm realizing what I'm noticing now is that there's a sometimes with I'm like, how do I integrate? So I've been sitting with lots of embodiment practices, sacred Kali, taking lots of walks, because I need to move sometimes the things that are in my brain that I know and move them into my body. For instance, just a real quick example, the leaves are changing here, the weather's getting cooler, and sometimes I deal with seasonal affective disorder. I get the SADs, but I know in my brain there's nothing to be sad about, but my body is like, but we're sad. And so there's like an integration piece that needs to happen. And then also an awareness piece, knowing that I am earth, right? I am also earth, just
Yeah.
like the earth is earth. And when it gets colder like this, I too want to slow down, and that's okay. So just
Yeah.
integration. That's my Bruha Tings. Everything is Bruha Tings if you bring intention and magic to it.
Yes. I love that. I mean, you're honoring that you move with the seasons too. I mean, we move with the sunlight. So as an invitation, take or toss, anybody kind of listening, how we move with nature. And start with sunlight, because most of us are sleeping, I think, when the sun's down, right? Or it's hard to stay awake when.
Yeah. And I think too, part of the grief that happens in my body this time of year is like my literal DNA is like, but we're used to it being sunny and warm 24/7.
No, right.
Right. And so it's even, I feel like I'm not going to speak that out, but it's going to be a challenge when the leaves change and it gets colder. And like, I always get reminded that my ancestors aren't necessarily from here, that in my bones, in my blood, in like my DNA, it craves for 24/7 summer, basically.
Yeah. Just like I crave for 24/7 beach time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because we was on the water, sissy.
It was. Yep. My Baja
So,
was next to the beach. I had a beach house. That's why I'm like, why don't I have it in this lifetime yet?
Yeah. And so anyway, but I love the land that I'm on. So I'm just like, place of surrender.
Yeah.
And like, okay, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
thank you for listening.
That was a beautiful Bruha Tings.
Yes.
My turn.
Yeah.
Before, I don't think we need a timer then.
No. Yeah.
So, okay, my Bruha Ting, y'all. In efforts to prepare for today, if y'all follow Dearest Kapwatid, Jana, JL Creator, she made this tarot deck, Kapwa Tarot, and I grabbed it, and I think it wanted to come today and be part of this conversation.
She accidentally grabbed it. She thought she was grabbing your what? Your light or something?
A light, yes. This, as you know, the dang LED lights. So anywho, I was like, all right, it wants to be part of the conversation. So I pulled some cards. We pulled 3, and then we tried to, I couldn't find the third one. So then Sissy was so kind to assist. And
yeah.
You want to tell them?
No, you can tell them.
Oh, she just,
I'm so
I was like, can you help? She's like, I'll help you open the first page. And there was the card for her. So yeah. So we go through some cards. But if y'all's shameless plug, want to support Dear Kapwa, JL's been in the game for a minute.
She has been in the game.
If you ever listen to Jana, thank you for your work. But cop her card deck. This is like, it's
legit.
She drew all this, so it's very beautiful. And if you're searching for tools to like kind of spark that conversation, getting more in touch with, your Kapwa-ness, look her up, JL Creator on Instagram. That's all I know her handle. But I pulled 3 cards. So we got Nuno Sampunso, and we got Nuno ng Balahibo ng Ibon.
Wow.
And the third one is Lima ng Balat. So Nuno sa Punso. I'm gonna try to make this quick because It also comes with a PDF, y'all. And I wasn't as organized as Sissy says here.
I have mine in a binder. I'm a nerd.
All right, so bear with me. I'm gonna try to read as fast as I can. So the Nuno Sapunso teaches us that the importance of protecting our sacred spaces, and that the most sacred space is the self.
Ooh.
Myth of the Nuno Sapunso is one that speaks on their very real connection to the land, and how when there is a disruption or intrusion of the areas in which they occupy, that they are quick to defend it and cause harm to those who do not respect the boundaries that they are crossing. As children, we are told to call out the chant of Tabi Tabi Po.
Yeah.
As a way of, we talked about this in other
Uh-huh.
episodes, by the way, as a way for asking for permission to cross natural land and not to be cursed or harmed by those that protected those sacred spaces of earth. The Nuno Sapunso values their solarity space of dwelling, and it is very aware and alert to anything that enters their space without permission. The lesson that they invite us to learn is about our boundaries, that the protection of our energy, our time, and physical being, and about recognizing the sacred space of self. So this card is asking you to take time to remember the importance of the time you have to be with self, to honor self by providing time to replenish, to be still and take time to look within, and also to see around us, observe from a distance the truth of life that is presenting to us in this moment.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, there's much more, but for the sake of capitalistic time, that's sit with yourself. So that's card number 1.
Yes, boundaries. Sit with yourself. Honor your boundaries. That's a good one.
I know, right? Do you want to read that?
I'll read the third one that I had found. So you read the second one.
Okay, so this is Nunino ng Balahibo ng Ibon. And that's, I think, ancestor with the bird. This sounds like Nino, obviously means ancestors. Ninuno.
Yeah.
Our Ninuno ng Balahibo sa Ibon is courageous and strong and intellectual brilliance. They lead with authority that is respected and that is looked at with high regard. It is because our Ninuno does not let fear take part in the way their mind takes flight. They move with conviction and strength of will. I'm about to get really old, y'all, because this is really small. I mean, dang, look at the text. Because I was trying to say paper, you know. Anyways, it is print smaller. Okay, based on their past accomplishments and their triumphs over past challenges, in which they have gathered deep lived lessons that guide him and those who follow to move with focus and clarity. The Ninuno, I can't say that. Why is Ninuno also remembers knowledge that has been passed down, ancestral teaching and indigenous knowing that looks to the intellect and not only the human, but of all living things and also of spirit. Ninuno is calling you to release all that limits you in your mind and be instead moved by that of your knowing that is connected to universal understanding and an honoring of the gained truths that you have learned throughout your life. Be like Ninuno, just know and understand that your knowing is not arbitrary. It is supported by gathered knowledge, and it will help you make decisions with rationale and without being attached or led by emotions first that can cloud your ability to move with clarity. Find fairness, let the advice you give and receive come from a place of objectivity, and it is not driven by personal gain or preference. If you cannot be the one to find the truth of knowing that you need, look to someone who can help you clear away the clouded judgment and be moved by action, by sound, ethical, and grounded knowledge.
Oh, that's a good one too. That's a good one too, Sissy. Okay, so the third one is Lima ng Balat, which is 5 of shells, traditional tarot cards, that's cups. So this is the one where Steffi couldn't find it in where it was in her chart, in her little booklet thing. So I was like, let me help you find it. And I grabbed my binder that I have because I'm, like I said, I'm a nerd. Look at that. Look at those. That's all my,
Got tabs.
all the meanings of my decks.
He's
So
shaming.
anyway, I'm not trying to shame you. This is just my brain.
Okay.
Anyway, I just did like this, boom, boom. And that's literally where it opened to, was the exact card I was looking for. So,
Yep.
5 ng balat. Loss. Challenges and obstacles within and around you in relation to loss. Mourning. This is a moment in which you are overcome and overwhelmed with sorrow and pain of losing a person, an opportunity, an outcome. And gratitude for all else is nowhere to be found, let alone are you capable of finding the gratitude for what these challenges may be teaching you.
God damn.
It is true that loss is with you at this moment, and it is easy to see your experience in this moment of shadow and darkness as a place in your living that speaks to and may affirm your self-doubt, your self-pity, or that allows you to feel without hope. And so rather than saying to look for the light in this situation, the offer in this card is to find the deep lessons that arise from these moments of anguish. Allow yourself to sink, and then there is nowhere else to do but rise. Dig deeply in these moments and let the waters of your soul be your healer, be your teacher, be the very thing that you needed to level up and remember yourself. So the 3 cards, boundaries, right? And the first one, Ninuno, the first Ninuno card. The second one was making decisions from a place of like just not in your emotions that you can't really see straight. And the third one is just going super deep within and letting yourself be the healer. So if that resonates with any of you all out there, take it. Whatever resonates with you.
Sacred does. Yeah.
Thanks, sis, for pulling those.
Yeah. Thank you, guides.
Yes.
Confirmed.
Yes.
Yep.
So
they call it divination too.
Yeah.
This is divination.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bruha Tings.
Bruha Tings. So let us know what Bruha Tings you're up to. Let us know what synchronicities have happened in your practices. That's always fun. So.
Welcome back. Next up is Brown Girl Cliff Notes.
Here we go.
And so now we're getting to some juicy deets. If y'all caught the last episode, again, respect to Judy, but this one was much more juicy. This chapter held an intertwining of details cited from an Italian supernumerary. I can't say words today.
It's okay.
Just remember, that's why you're here, sis. Antonio Pigafetta. Being a supernumerary meant Pigafetta didn't partake in shipboard responsibilities besides documenting and writing about our favorite antagonist, Ferdinand Magellan. But will we shift our thoughts about Magellan after this chapter? Thanks to Pigafetta and his famous piece, Magellan's Voyage, a narrative account of the first circumnavigation, another author, Laurence Bergreen, who wrote Over the Edge of the World, was able to translate Spain's first landings in the Philippines. We get into a movie, y'all. I don't know who's going to make this movie, but I can't wait to watch it. Through this translation, Bergreen took us on a journey on and off the ship and the intriguing first stages of actually peaceful, friendly, and apparently ritualistic blood bonding interactions.
Oh, yeah.
Between the 2 leaders, Magellan and an unidentified Filipino king from the island of Homonhon. Homonhon, yeah. It is said that this location was later to be named as Aquade for its water and first signs of gold, post-colonialism. Of course, you know, the Europeans got to go in and change shit. In addition, yes, shameless shame. It is interesting that Philippine historian William Henry Scott teaches us that in the days of international trade, slaves were actually employed to be translators. Magellan, having two separate Arabic and Malay speaking slaves, specifically worked with the Malay slave because Magellan was actually looking for spices that would soon be found, that would be actually found in East Indonesia, and he actually landed in Philippines instead. But obviously, yeah, ended up there first. So this soon to be well-known Malay slave, Malay, sorry, y'all.
I think it's Malay.
Malay.
Like Malaysia.
See, sis, that's why you're here today. Malay slave, Enrique, his name is Enrique, seems to have quite the benevolent effect. They called the Enrique effect because his translations cultivated what appears to be sincere trust between the Filipino king and Magellan.
Yes, thank you for that. For that summary, Sissy. That was really good.
Interesting chapter, yeah.
The one thing I wanted to point out before we head into our vocab words and our quote was what Ati Judy says. I grew up thinking that Spain wanted to colonize the Philippines to spread Christianity, but I learned this was only secondary to securing spices, a valuable commodity. And I don't know. I don't know. I was like, yeah. But then but they did it in the name of Christianity. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. But yeah, this one makes me feel, I don't know. This is just it's interesting. What are you?
Can you say more? Like,
I don't know. Like, it was like fucking Magellan. You know what I'm saying? It's Spain. You want to think that they came up in there like fucking guns a-blazing, like, fuck you. We're taking over now. Right. And maybe it was like that, like after a while. I mean, maybe we'll find out in this book at what point it becomes like that. But it seems as if they were just looking for some spices. They were just like, can I season my chicken? Do you know? They were just like, where's the garlic spice?
Yeah.
We would like some for some food. We'd like to trade with you. And, I don't know.
It became funk, obviously. But
yeah, it became sideways. But it's like, oh, interesting.
So like, yeah, it was like a shift of perspective for me because I've been fed the narrative of they killed him, our ancestors killed Magellan, but it kind of is like a call to come back to peace and love and like consider he's actually another human being who had an experience too,
right?
But
Right. Yeah. So
we go dive in with some deets. But yeah, it's a good chapter, y'all, to read.
That was the juicy bit. I was like, wait, what?
Plot twist. Right. Plot fucking twist. Like,
yeah.
So we can consider not to hate Magellan.
I mean, I'm still gonna hate him.
Right. Well, fuck him for pillaging our people, but
records, but it was like record scratch, like what?
Okay. Right. That's perfect. Like,
yeah, like, oh wait a minute.
Pause this shit. Bring it back. What? Yep.
Yeah, it was.
It's possible. That's part of like being open-minded to it. Like,
yeah,
very possible. So.
Yeah. So okay, just give it a chance, folks. Just give it a chance.
And you could still take our toss again. We said this already.
Take a toss. We're not experts, and Auntie Judy is like, I'm not an expert either.
So this is what happened. So
yeah, this is what happened. So, all right. Thank you, sis.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got vocabulary words, and then we've got quotes. So we'll start with vocabulary words. I will go first. So I guess my vocabulary was not necessarily a word, but I wanted to bring attention to one of the books that Ati Judy talks about, or a short story that she talks about in the beginning of this chapter to kind of prove a point. So she said that I remembered that in a bamboo grove, so that's technically my my vocabulary word, in a bamboo grove, is a short story, Japanese short story I had read for a sophomore year communications class at the University of the Philippines. The story presented 3 different points of view of the murder of a samurai. Each section clarified but also complicated the story that unfolds, eventually creating a complex and contradictory version of events. I imagine it must have been a livelier than usual class discussion because everyone had their pick for who was telling the truth.
Yes.
There is no correct version, our professor said, resulting in groans and expressions of disbelief. The lesson was that how events were described by the characters reflect subjective interpretation and self-interested advocacy. This made me think about Magellan's journey because while there were various firsthand accounts of this extraordinary voyage, history was literally written by one side. What we know today about these events were from European accounts, pre-colonial Filipinos who were oral historians, and we had talked about that in previous episodes, that we were oral historians, had their own stories about these encounters from their point of view, but these have been lost to history. So she goes on to say how Pigafetta, who we had talked about, the numerary, she goes on to talk about Pigafetta and how the numerary, how his was the longest and most valuable narrative of the voyage, was written by a young Italian who was neither a professional seaman nor a humanist. So, I mean, and then that's when she talks about how, what I want to bring up is what we talked about at the end of Brown Girl Cliff Notes about how we grew up thinking that Spain wanted to colonize the Philippines to spread Christianity, but this was only secondary to securing spices. It wasn't the first thing, it was the second thing. Right. And so I don't know, it's just messing with my head. Like, there is no correct version. There is no correct version, but we have a missing version, which is the oral history of our ancestors. And the closest thing we have is Pigafetta's version, because it's the longest. And what I found interesting was it's the longest and most valuable narrative. And it's Skelton who wrote that little part. The longest and most valuable narrative of the voyage was written by a young Italian who was neither a professional seaman nor a humanist. So it's kind of like,
sorry,
I know. We're 12. If you know, you know. If you caught it,
I'm young.
If you caught it, you caught it. But I'm like,
sorry, I'm rude. I'm cutting you off, sis. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Like, we were all thinking it. Even as I said it, I was like, oh man, somebody's gonna be like, oh, seaman. Okay. Come back. So my whole thing is like, he wasn't a professional. Like, this guy was like, yeah, this guy's a nobody, basically. Yeah. But he's not a nobody because our words are important, no matter if we have a fucking quote unquote title or not, you know? Like, his was the most important, and he was quote unquote just a numerary. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's 2022 and this is from what, 1500s? That document, those words, it could have been my gosh dang neighbor, writing down. I don't know what's gonna be 3,000 to 2,000 years from now. Like,
exactly.
They used to send mail. They used to like write things. I don't know. Now we're talking, we're the technologies, I'm trying to say. So anyways, I love how you're bringing up that there's perspective, the bamboo grove story.
Yeah, everybody's perspective is important, even if you are not a professional seaman. Sorry, Not sorry. That's funny.
Mm.
Okay. We're I'm a professional podcaster, but we're not professional.
We're
Anyway,
not experts, but we are experienced.
yeah, there we go. So I don't know. That was a lot of takeaways from In a Bamboo Grove, but those were my takeaways.
Yeah.
Keep on writing your words, even if you're not professional, because they are still important later on down the road as you become a future ancestor. And then also, there is no correct version of histories. There are only missing ones, like our ancestors' oral histories. So but there are correct versions of histories though. But like what that's what I'm saying. Like my mind is blown, but we don't need to dwell on that. Thank you for witnessing me in that. Woo. All of that.
Woo.
Yeah.
Well, I want to bring that up later as we I think
Okay.
it's something about like especially I did mention it, the what's his name? Enrique
Yeah.
Effect.
The Enrique Effect.
Enrique's interpretation he could have said one wrong word or could have told him like, nah, like don't trust him, but out of what I'm reading is the benevolence in Enrique's heart. He's like, let's all be friends. Like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. The interpreters had a lot of power.
they do.
I'm sorry that they were like slaves and like didn't have they weren't recognized in history. I hate that. But like this very interesting that they picked quote unquote slaves to be interpreters, but had you could just be like you
one wrong word, sis.
yeah, or you could twist it to what you wanted it to mean.
Be manipulative as fuck. Yeah. So that's his heart. In Ate Judy's interpretation, the Enrique Effect seemed to be a landing benevolent thing because which do you feel complete, sis? That's kind of a segue. It's okay if you're not.
Yeah, I guess I had one more thought about the Enrique Effect. Made me think of like, yeah, I always thought that our ancestors came and they were like, fuck you, Magellan. You know what I mean? Like, you suck or whatever. But it's like, actually, he was met like everybody who wanted to trade was met. There was a little bit of like, okay, we're going to do the little dance of like, the respect. Like, we have to play the diplomatic game. But eventually, they actually were very open to him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very open.
Yeah. Okay. I'm done.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah. I'm done.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, speaking of open.
Yeah.
It brings to my words on page 90, Sandugo. So Sandugo, which means one blood, was actually I'll just read the statement. So as you're kind of picking up, basically Magellan and his crew found a place to land, and obviously the indigenous folks were like, who's this? And then they met and then they like exchanged gifts, and then it was okay, you gave me something, I give you something, es casa es su casa. And then they started hanging out, and then through the interpretations and translations, obviously there was a trust built. So Magellan and this king got so close that they did this ritual. And what it says here on page 90, they became so kasi, which meant that Magellan wished to be blood brothers with the island king. So a ceremony requiring the mingling of their blood. And this ritual was performed to seal treaties or validate an agreement. Another Spanish account that Bergreen referenced described the process as both parties cutting their chests, the blood poured into a vessel to be mixed together with wine, and each party drank one half of it. So, and Ate Judy says, you might be having an ear moment here like my husband did when I described it, but I grew up learning about this in our history textbook, so I was aware of the ritual. So, and then they say here in the Sayan, kasing, which means heart. The other thing that she says perplexed me was how Magellan knew how to ask the king to join a blood compact with him. Since this was a custom in Southeast Asia during the time, how could Magellan have heard about it when he was in Malacca? It made me wonder, what else did Magellan know about the customs and traditions of that area?
Well, it's probably from Enrique,
Yes, because Enrique's from
Yeah,
Indonesia or Malaysia.
Malaysia. Yeah.
And I mean, Bergreen says Magellan's attitude towards indigenous people had undergone a revolution where he had been content to convert, kidnap, and when it suited his whim, even kill the giants. I guess this is a different place, Patagonia. He felt a genuine kinship with this Filipino ruler.
And then they said that that might have been the Enrique effect. That's why Magellan was kinder towards the Filipinos themselves. But that's what I mean. I thought like Magellan was this fucking asshole. And it says here,
dynasties. But he put a whole ass like what was that Rome story? Caesar, a Julius Caesar ass moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which dun dun dun. Again, we said this chapter was juicy, right? There's more. Like the next chapter is about the friendship. So
yeah, so it's interesting, y'all.
Dude.
What? I'm
if you
like
ain't reading, you might as well read now.
Oh my gosh. I was like, what the hell? So, but then, okay, can we just talk about this right quick?
Yeah, also, from my background, my biology degree is in molecular and cellular bio. It is ew because that is so not safe. Like blood, you don't know where that man been. You don't know who he been with. Like,
also, just speaking magically, fucking blood magic.
Ooh, yeah.
Blood magic, yo. And then the drinking of the blood, I was like, I'm wondering if Magellan was okay with it because it felt like communion. In communion, you drink you eat the body of Christ and drink the blood.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So maybe he was like, that's cool. But then also like, we made a blood pact with Spain right from the rip, man. Like,
man, like
what?
Who was this king? Because he was besties and sipping blood.
Yeah.
That's a whole ass, like, I'm thinking of song lyrics now. Because now I can't go to church and drink the blood without thinking about Magellan and the king now.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Kasing.
Sandugo, y'all. That's a ritual.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest doing that one though. I would not suggest it.
I mean, clearly it didn't end well. So my whole question is like, what the hell happens next? It's like a cliffhanger. Like, what?
Oh yeah, I know. So we'll stay tuned for the next episode where we will find out what happened between the friendship of Magellan and this anonymous king.
Well narrated, sis.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm complete if you are.
I am complete. Yes. Thank you, sister. Okay, so we're back for quotes after that juicy vocabulary words. So let's go. Let's get into it. Steffi, what you got?
My quote, I wanted to bring it back a little bit and just elaborate because I know some folks are just listening in. But if you do want to dive into like the details of the chapter, like for me, I'm a visual person and it was just nice to hear about how like, they landed and then they exchanged gifts because I was like, oh shit. And you get to kind of learn about this is all about trade, right? It's all about trade at the end of the day. That's what got us to he circumnavigated the globe for international trade. So I like a little detail in this piece where Pigafetta vividly described coconuts and palm trees for his readers. I enjoyed reading these and seeing another perspective of the environment I grew up in. Coconut meat, he described as a white marrow of a finger's thickness with the flavor of an almond. From the coconut tree, Filipinos were able to make palm wine, fibers for rope, oil, vinegar, and milk. He said, and 2 of these trees will sustain a family of 10 persons, but they do not draw the aforesaid wine always from one tree, but take it for a week from one, and so with the other, for otherwise the trees would dry up. And in this way, they last 100 years. This showed me how our ancestors were careful stewards of nature, making sure that these resources lasted for generations. So I know I talked all that stuff about exchanging stuff, but it's really interesting, y'all. So you can hear about like the spices they did, the exchange, and the chocolates and nutmeg, mace, gold.
Yeah, there was a hat too. There's like a red hat that was passed around to the one of the kings, and it was like an important thing.
Turkish robes, stuff like that. I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
all the stuff. But I wanted to bring up this quote because, you know, in lieu of the ongoing slaughter of indigenous people and not taking and land back, which in Oakland is actually one of the first cities that are actually giving land back to the indigenous people to take care of. This is an explanation of how we can preserve land. And I didn't even know that either. So it was really interesting. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight how our ancestors knew how to take care of and not fucking mass produce shit that plant or animals will. I read this morning that Alaskan crabs are disappearing, y'all. That can't be good. But yeah, so yeah, I didn't know that they, when they're pulling resources from a coconut tree, they know to take some, but leave some, wait a little bit, give a little bit, you know?
And then, so if they last 100 years, that's several generations. So that becomes your literal plant cester. That is a plant that has been in your family for generations. That is an ancestor plant, you know? And it's just interesting how they said like 2 trees will sustain a family of 10 persons. And it's like the capitalistic version of that will be like, wow, 2 of these trees can sustain 10 people. Well, let's plant 100 and like, and then turn around and like, yeah, feed or sell it to people. And look how many people we can sell it to. We can sell it. We can sell 2 trees worth of stuff to 10 people. Well, guess we can sell 100 trees worth to, I can't do math, so you do the math yourself. But that's like the capitalistic version. But this is like, man, like, think about how happy those coconut trees were, like the spirit of the coconut tree. If we want to think about how our ancestors were like were believed in animism and everything had a spirit, like their purpose was to sustain that family, and that family was, they were probably happy, you know. And then it makes me think, like, as you were talking, and I was just thinking about things being mass produced, specifically like produce, like, is the produce happy? I don't know, you know, if you start thinking about like animism, like,
and then we eat it.
yeah, there's just, yeah. So just something to think about. But I love that you brought up the resources and the land back, and like really learning how to live with nature and be good stewards of it. So
yeah. And then indigenous care, like, I think we should make a shirt that speaks of like, bring back indigenous care, because that's how we can, I don't know, it's coming through, like ideally reforest, right? Or replant those resources that humans, we overconsume, and I'm guilty.
Same.
And it's just, I guess, like the call to action from someone who is not an expert at all in that field is like, how do we in our respective spaces and cities and towns, like how do we honor, that's where we need indigenous people to be advisors. Like, you're not going to have chicken then at this time of the year, and you're going to have to figure out how to eat different meats. Imagine telling Americans that.
No, I'd be like, it is my right to eat chicken right now.
See, but it's not, because that's entitlement. That's that freaking white colonial mentality. Like, this is my land and I want what I want. Like,
right.
You're harming it, and eventually it's gonna be gone, and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So anyways, I just say that all to say, part of what I'm trying to do is just take what I need. And as a health coach, I apply that to food too, you know, like take what you need, only what you want to eat. Like, don't
That's
take.
good.
Yeah. And
that's good, sissy. I like that.
Yeah, because selfishness and greed is what's killing the planet. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. So what can we do to, I don't know, there needs to be some mass activism or movement or policy shifts around mass production, but there's so many millionaires who will not be for that. So
Yeah.
I digress. So anyways, I thought that was cool to just learn about how they honor a coconut tree.
Thank you, sis.
Yeah.
All right. If you are complete, I'll move to mine. Okay. So my quote is from page 91. I'm just going to read. it. So, she's talking about Enrique and how he was actually the first one that probably circumnavigated the globe because he was from Indonesia, Malaysia, right? So, Philippines must have looked a little bit like home to him, kind of like where he was from.
Right.
So she ends the chapter saying, I wonder how Enrique must have felt to be back in the familiar or similar surroundings of his youth. I know that feeling, having lived away from the Philippines for a long time now. When my husband, then fiance, first traveled with me to the Philippines, he was surprised, excuse me, he was surprised when Filipinos applauded as the plane touched down in Manila. As he looked at me with the unsaid question on his face, I replied, Filipinos are just happy to be home. When you leave a place, you somehow expect things to stay the same as you left, though every time you come back, not only have places changed, but people have too. And sometimes those left behind are no longer there. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, and sometimes friends moving to a place not of this world, making the return a bittersweet experience.
Hmm.
I know, and like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
like how Ati Judy kind of brought the whole thing back to the here and now into something that we can feel, Like we all have that longing to be home, that longing to remember. I mean, this is why we're doing this work, because we have a longing to remember what home is.
For real.
Um, so, but it's just like, man, but the what we're looking for, right, is not going to be the same as it once was. I don't know. There was something poetic about it. And it really is like bittersweet. And then I think we can all just like find relate to that feeling, resonate with that feeling of just being happy to be home. And I do remember this actually when I've gone to the Philippines a couple times. Um, every time we did touch down in Manila, people clapped. I remember that. I was young, but I was like, oh, this is different than when I've been on airplanes before. Like people is clapping.
Yeah, I don't remember. I went to the Philippines once and
Mm.
I don't remember that. I didn't pay attention. So that is, I mean, I'd clap to land safely because that's a long ass flight, by the way. Like,
Right,
that's the
right.
longest flight ever. Like, ooh, I'm a
Yeah.
Bruha. Like, where's my transportation powers? But teleport
Right.
transportation. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that was a sweet quote to just also tie in the Enrique effect of how he's come, like you mentioned in the beginning, sis, your body is looking for a warm place to come back to. And maybe that was, well, he wasn't in Malaysia, he was close to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've actually heard like Indonesia, Malaysia language. It
It's
sounds very close to Tagalog.
it is. It is. It's very close.
Right. So maybe one day we will get a dialect, maybe in our study break
Yeah.
sessions,
Yeah.
like to talk about language.
Yeah.
And so maybe Enrique was like coming back to a similar environment and felt, the familiarity, and that helped stew his vibration to
Yeah.
cultivate that peace and friendliness between these two worlds that were coming together. So
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, did he find his way back home? Like he circumnavigated the globe. Like, did Magellan take him back to Malaysia? Was like, good job. I
Right.
don't know, maybe not. That's like in my head, like that should be the movie. That should be the movie, the Enrique Effect. And then at the end, he gets to go home. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a good ending.
Yeah. So that's the ending in my head for Enrique. So thank you,
It'll
Enrique.
be a movie in what is it, 2022?
Not me. I'm not making it. Somebody, or maybe one of our descendants. So y'all are listening right now.
We'll make this a movie. Yeah, it's lost history. Because dang.
Yeah.
So
So
I don't
anyway,
want a documentary. Make a movie.
there we go. So anyway, that is quotes and vocabulary words and Brown Girl Cliff Notes for you today. Lots of juicy things. We hope you took some things away for your heart and for yourself today. So, as we end our conversation and close out this container with so much gratitude, once again, we recognize and honor all the ancestors and all the ancestors of the lands we occupy. We also recognize and honor you, dear Kaputid, for joining our conversation today. And as always, Stephanie and I leave you with a blessing. As you play your part in history as a future ancestor, may you know that your words, observations, and perspectives are important, whether or not the world gives you a quote-unquote title. And as you continue your sacred remembrance journey, though the journey back may be a bittersweet experience, we hope your kasing or heart is just happy to be home. May the remembrance of Kapwa anchor you into your heart, and until we meet again, may you know that all is well and will be well, and that no matter what happens,